Praneeth, your peer at SST and a member of LDC, who is organizing this Supermentor session today. Now, here we have with us someone whose journey is one of the most fascinating ones. He is Mr. Jacob Singh, ex-CTO at Blinkit, ex-CTO in residence at Sequoia, and now CTO at AlphaWave. Can we have a huge round of applause to welcome him? So, Jacob, before we get going, would you like to say a quick hi to the folks here?
Yeah. Hi. Cool. I've been excited to see the campus for a while. I've known the Scalar founders for many years now, and kind of been excited about the project for various reasons, personal and professional. And so it's pretty cool to see how far it's come along. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Also, thanks for attending this. We have these students here. All of them are Scalar School of Technology students. These are students with high skill. They've built projects that solve real-world problems, did startups, had open source contributions right in their first year. So that gives you an idea of the batch who are hearing this Supermentor session from you. We're all passionate about CS, and we're really excited to have you here today and hear about your experiences, insights from you in scaling tech and all building startups and all of that. Cool. So let's get started with your journey.
All right, cool.
I heard you had a slideshow prepared for us.
Yeah, I spent a long time in the cab this morning. 18, I think, or 17, 18. I got a job as a temp. You guys know what a temp is? No? Okay, temporary secretary. So these agencies where you register with them and they're like, okay, can you type? Do you know Excel? Do you know Word? We'll place you somewhere on a part-time basis. You get paid per hour to go do some menial work, right? And then that's the job, yeah? And so I'm gonna talk to you about that journey, but I'm gonna say this is a little bit of gyan for you guys, because I think we could talk about the specifics of like what I did at Blinkit and what I think about this technology, that technology, or VC, et cetera. But I think the primary concern you guys have is, I'm going to this vocational school, this like high-end vocational school. I want to get a job. I want to figure out how to get a job. I want to figure out how to be successful when I didn't go to an IIT. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So I also did not go to an IIT, and I think I've done all right. So I'm going to share with you some things that have worked for me, and maybe they'll work for you and be useful. Or maybe it's just an old man ranting, which isn't relevant, but you'll find out. And I force-fed them into 5 C's. So we're going to go through them. Curiosity, confidence, community, creativity, and care. All right? Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, this thing? Yeah, it's cool. I can use this.
Sorry, you need the mic because this is being streamed on YouTube and it's not audible.
But I can't talk with this thing.
Any other mics?
Oh, yeah, that would be better.
Is this okay?
Is it the mic or is it the feedback system? It's like very echoey. Hello? This works great because it doesn't work. Let's see. Hi. Okay.
Is this okay?
This is okay. Yeah, it's a little less echoey. All right, cool. Curiosity will get you fired. This is Northfield Mount Herman. This is the place where I was temping. It's a very elite private school in Massachusetts. The Kennedys went there, I think. It's $40,000, $50,000 a year. It's beautiful. I worked here, though. This is the office. There's a place called the Office of Plan Giving. And so there's these things called the X files. So my job was, there was a whole wall full of binders like this. And in each of the binders was a printout of something that the director had done, a phone call, a letter, whatever. And there was a new computer system which looked literally like this. And I was expected to go through each file and type into the computer system. DM called blah, blah, blah on such and such date. Next. DM, next. That was my job. It was supposed to be a 6-month contract to go through 30 years of history and put into this new computer system. Pretty exciting stuff, right? So it was terribly boring. And in the process, I would get asked to do some reporting stuff, some basic, pulling up some numbers for the boss, et cetera. And I found out that there was this new system being built that existed somewhere. And so I logged in with my boss's account when he was at lunch. His password was his son's name. And I found this new system, and I went in there, and I was an Access database. You guys know Access? Microsoft Access? Yeah. I didn't really know anything about that, but I learned what it was about. I wrote some SQL queries, and I started automating the reports that I was making. I started learning SQL so I could get that done quickly. And then with this one, I learned about macros, this terminal emulator I had that I was using to type into the system. I made little shortcuts for myself to be able to quickly fill in different things that I had to repetitively do. And I got way faster. And I started whipping through it. And as I was going, I started building a little application for my boss to be able to pull the reports himself. I got caught for hacking into the system, but he kind of forgave me because we got out early. And after about 3 months of a 6-month project, I was done with this stuff. So I started going around the office and talking to people, hey, can I help with this? Can I do something else? You got something for me? And when the word got up to the boss that I had finished early and that I was looking for more work from different folks, they fired me because I was paid by the hour and they didn't pay me anymore. But what I realized from this whole experience was that when I went out of my way to find better ways to do things, I would always, whenever I found a way to deprecate myself, in my career, I've always gotten somewhere better than I was before. It's very, even people who are paid a lot of money are very comfortable. You've heard about rest, invest? Yeah? No? Rest, invest is this phrase where people who join these big companies like Facebook or Google or whatever, and they're just hanging out and getting stock options and making money, but they're not really working very hard, right? Because these big organizations allow you to kind of do that. And that could be good for some people, but for me, I've found that always finding a way to make myself redundant has kept me relevant and kept me impactful and sort of worked for my career. Does that make sense? Yeah? So even now, I'm working as a VC, but I've written LLM, I've written agents to go out and do like market research for me, to write my memos, to do various things. I'm trying to deprecate the work that I do so I can do more creative and interesting work. That's how I got started in tech. Then the next thing, confidence will get you hired. So this is a story which for years I would lie and tell a slightly different story because I was worried people would think of me. So when I was working as a temporary secretary, I was also going to night classes at the community college, and I was also taking care of my mom, who was quite sick. And I was also selling pot to the kids at the school where I was temping because they were rich and wanted pot, and I was poor and I had pot. And I had friends who grew it. And it was still very illegal in America, and I think now I've made it far enough in my career that I don't care if people know this. But for a while I did. So I was selling enough weed to the kids that I needed to buy a scale. And so this was like 1999, and I was living in a cabin which looked nothing like this. But it was in the woods, and it was snow everywhere, and it was a little shack kind of place. And I dialed in with my 56K modem, and I found, you guys don't know what that is. Those old modems you see in the movies, they go, and they're really slow. And I found this website called balances.com. And this is what it looked like. And balances.com sold balances, sold scales. And I went to buy a scale, and this guy was the cheapest scale you could find online. This is like when Amazon just sold books, I think. And when I went to check out, the shopping cart was broken, and it showed some error. And so I called the guy up, because back then websites had phone numbers on them where you could call and you talk to the guy who owned the website. And I called him up and I said, your website sucks. I'm trying to check out and it's broken. And he says, I know, I need someone to fix it for me. And I said, I can fix it. And he says, you can? And I was like, yeah. He says, okay, kid, I'll pay you $8 an hour. Try make me like this banner ad over the weekend, whatever. So I Google what's a banner ad, like Alta Vista, I think, even at that point. It was like early, it wasn't even Google. And I kind of like, I pirated some software, which took like a day. I got some book, and I worked all weekend. I probably worked 15 hours to do this little thing for him. I billed him for 2 hours, and he's like, this sucks. And I said, yeah, I know. And he says, I said, give me another chance. He gave me another chance, and I kept doing that again and again and again. And 6 months later, I'm compiling stuff from source. I've set up, I'm running a few servers. I've learned about server-side programming. I'm learning Python, PHP, CSS was new at the time. I was sort of really deeply into it. And I'd probably, in the beginning, I would bill for 10% of my hours. After a while, I'd bill for 50% of my hours. And then a year later, I've hired 2 guys, and I have a blazer, and I'm going to the Chamber of Commerce in my local small town and selling websites, and making way more money than I made as a drug dealer. And so, this process kind of like was interesting. I mean, I'm not saying you should lie about your capabilities. I am saying that. I'm not saying you should sell drugs. It's just not very profitable anymore. It's too easy to get them. But I'm saying that it's sales is the most essential skill. You have to use sales in everything you do your entire career. If you are a staff engineer, you're the nerdiest sysadmin kind of guy, and you're like, hey, or gal, and you're like, hey, I want to, fix this my Terraform scripts, so my Kubernetes cluster is easier to modify. I can modify multiple, something extremely technical like that. You still need someone to okay that. You need somebody to agree that that's a good idea, and that's selling. And when selling, what it means is you find the person who you need the approval from, but you want the money from, you want the project from, and you identify with their needs, and you tell them that you can deliver on this, and then you do whatever it takes, But you have to go out of your comfort zone, and you have to also kind of work a little harder than you'd expect in the beginning, but building that trust, when you build trust with people, then you can get things. And to build that trust, you have to show confidence. You have to go out there and put yourself out there and say, I can do this. And for me, thankfully, I was desperate. So it just worked. But that's kind of, when people say, did you go to some fancy college? Did you study something? No, I literally went and bought giant programming books, and I read them day after day after day. And I just slogged building little things and got obsessed with my craft and make shit money for a year. But after that, I made good money. So it was worth it. And I think it's worked for me. These days, you guys are all replaced by AI, so I don't know. It might not work for you. Anyway, I did all that for 3 years. I made good money. I built a little business. And then I gave it all up to move to India. This is the question I kept getting was, you're doing it wrong. People try to leave India and go to America. What the fuck's wrong with you? Sorry. Why'd you do that? And for me, I was just curious. My dad's from India. He's half Indian. And I was curious, so I started visiting. I liked it, and I kind of didn't want to do tech. I did tech by accident, just because, like I said, I was desperate financially, and I happened to be really good at it. But I wanted to do some better stuff for society. So I joined this NGO called Dipalia, which is in West Delhi, in Janakpuri, and I went from running a successful small web design shop to living upstairs from an NGO, making 5,000 rupees a month, eating cheap dhaba food every night, and I was doing that for some time. And that's how I came to India. And then, various things have happened since then. But at some point, I decided I wanted to go back to the US and I wanted to go back to college. And I was like 24. And so I moved to Berkeley, California, where my dad was living. And I joined the community college there. And I needed to get a job because I was paying for my own college also. And while I was doing that, I found I wanted to work in the nonprofit humanitarian sector. I found an organization which built tech for nonprofits. So I was working with them. And they worked with this system called Drupal. Do you guys know Drupal? Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Drupal. One person? Really? No. You just want to stretch. You're just tired. You're like, that's awesome. That's so crazy to me, and it's so cool. So Drupal was the most popular open source project in the world in terms of contributors. There was 30,000 contributors to Drupal at one point, more than Linux, more than Firefox. It's a huge project. It still is quite big, but it's very legacy now. Drupal is a web content management system. So it's there for building web applications of any kind, but primarily community sites, blogging sites, publishing, that kind of thing. And it was popular, and this company used Drupal, and I thought Drupal was a heaping pile of garbage. And I liked this thing called Seagull. How many of you have heard of Seagull? You know you're lying. You're definitely lying. You've heard of Seagull? How?
Searching for something on the net. Not sure about Drupal, but have heard of it.
You're talking about the bird or the software? I'd be very surprised. We're talking about the same thing. So Seagull was this very early PHP framework. You know, nobody really used. I built a few good sites in it, a few big sites. I liked it. You can see all the things that are good about it on the list there. You know, modularity, quality control, stability of code, et cetera, et cetera. It was perfectly designed, great design patterns. I became obsessed with design patterns and good architecture, and it had great architecture. And Drupal had terrible architecture. Drupal had modules which would regex the SQL that was being executed. You couldn't debug anything. It was a total mess. And I was like, I joined this company and they used Drupal and I refused. I was like, I'll do the other projects you have, but I'm not gonna do Drupal. And then one day I happened to get on a call that we were bidding for a project. And the project we were bidding for was for Amnesty International. Does anyone know Amnesty International? No? No? No one's heard of Amnesty? Heard of it? Okay. Amnesty is one of the largest NGOs in the world. It is a human rights nonprofit, so they're banned in India, I think. But they help political prisoners and refugees and things. And it's a large NGO, it's a big project. And I had to use Drupal for it. And I was leading a team of about 15 developers. And I was 25 years old. I was going to London every month. It was this big, big project. And there they had this thing called a Google Search Appliance, which is that yellow box right there. A Google Search Appliance is something where you plug in and you hook it up to your own content and you get your own Google. That make sense? So people could go and they could search within your content for whatever thing. And I thought this technology is pretty cool. Sorry, let me backtrack a little bit. Seagull framework went nowhere, but this is Drupal. And along with that, when I was doing Drupal at Amnesty, I became pretty well known in the Drupal community because I built a lot of modules for this large project, including for the Google Search Appliance. And one of the things I did was I decided that I could take the Google Search Appliance and I could shard it into 10,000 different pieces, and I could rent out each piece individually and make a business out of it. So I launched this business. And I thought it was very clever. Google's lawyers, however, thought that it was illegal, which is true. And then I rebuilt it in something called Apache Solr, which was open source and was legal. And I launched that business, and 2 months after that, I got a call from this guy, Dries Puter, who was the founder of Drupal. And he said, we started this new company called Acquia. Acquia is the commercial company for Drupal. And we're also building a hosted search service. And we like what you've done. We think your profile is great, and we'd love for you to join us. And if you don't join us, then we'll crush you, because we raised $8 million. And I said, that sounds like a good idea. So I joined him. And I think there's a certain creativity that comes from constraints. You know, when you get stuck with something, finding something else that you can build with it has always opened up doors. And Acquia did pretty well. When I joined Acquia, I was the 25th employee. We had no revenue. And for the first year, we had no revenue. And the startup looked like it was going nowhere. But then we started to grow. And I got to do a lot of different things there that I had no business doing. So one of the things is when you're, let me sit down for a second. When you're starting off, when you're new,
When he's talking,
it's very hard to imagine how you get ahead. I remember this feeling when I was a new engineer,
The table is not.
and I didn't really understand it. What worked for me was I joined this place. They brought me in. I don't think I was very good. I thought I was very good. And then I worked with people who were actually really good. And along the way, we were successful together as a team. The company grew. And when the company grew, as companies do, new opportunities open up. When I joined, we were just engineers, a few salespeople. That's it. And at some point, we had a support team. And then somebody needed to lead the support team, so I did that. And then at some point, we had a training department. And they brought me in, I gave a training at a conference, it went well. And then I did another one, and then they said, why don't you run the training team? I quit. I was like, I'm tired of this engineering stuff, I want to do this. And they gave me the job running the training team, so I became a trainer. And then at some point, we were selling big enterprise contracts. We needed sales engineers to go out in the field. So I got that opportunity. And then we wanted to open an India office. And I was the guy who had been to India, knew India. And so I became the India country head when I was 28. I had no business getting any of those jobs. But what happens is, if you're part of something which is rising, something which is growing, you build trust with the people who run the place, and then they give you opportunities to do things you have no business doing. Honestly, that's the best recipe for getting ahead. I see a lot of folks in India who do the opposite. They think, let me maximize my salary by jumping every 2 years, every year and a half. Let me find a new job, find a new job, find a new job, find a new job. That kind of gets you to a place where you're earning okay, but you never really get a lot of creative fulfillment or excellence in your work, and you don't build a good reputation. And as you'll find as you get older, your reputation, your network becomes far more important than your sort of salary in terms of what you can achieve. Does that make sense? Yeah? So my advice to you on that is, obviously sell yourself, be confident, work hard, get in somewhere. And then, it's much more important which team you choose than it is which role you have. So Siegel framework, it doesn't exist. Like, nobody cares. That guy didn't go anywhere. Drupal, on the other hand, became an international phenomenon, right? The community grew. The community was massive. The code problems got fixed over time. The purity didn't matter. The community mattered. The people you were rising with mattered more. And I built up this great organization in India with Dries, and eventually Vista Partners bought Acquia for $1 billion 8 years later. And that changed sort of my financial trajectory of my life, coming from someone whose family didn't have any money at all to like being okay. I'm not loaded, but I'm okay. So yeah, the last thing is care. And this is probably the most important one that I want you to remember and think about, is care about your work and work with people you care about and work with people who care about their work. I can't stress this enough. It's so important. It's so, so important. It's more important than all the rest of the things. You can only be excellent if you have integrity. And you can only have integrity if you work with people who have integrity and are kind, and you feel safe to fail and to grow with them. And this has been by far not only the most gratifying personally, but the most important recipe for my own success is to pick the people I work with. This is Vedic Kapoor. You guys know him? No? Vedic is the reason I ended up at Grofers. So after Acquia had been successful, I tried to poach him to do this startup with me from Grofers, and he kind of reverse poached me and made me his boss. So he brought me in and he said, look, we're having some trouble. I knew him, back up. I knew Vedic through the community. So I had led a bunch of open source meetups. I had led a workshop on Git when Git was new. And I needed someone to assist me. And he was from JP, right? He didn't go to super fancy school. It's an okay one. And I asked him to come up, but he said, I need a volunteer to help. And he volunteered to help, and we became friends. And I realized he was really good. And I tried to hire him to join me at Acquia. He didn't. He joined Wingify. You guys know Wingify? Yeah? And he was one of the early guys at Wingify, and then he was at Grofers, and I tried to get him to join me. And he, again, rejected me. But he said, we're having some trouble scaling engineering. Why don't you come help? And so I started consulting with Grofers, helping them build up their engineering product, et cetera. And then they got me the CTO. But along the way there, I just want to I'm going to tell a couple examples of a couple people who I really respect and how they got ahead. And I mean, I have 100 of these cases. We could talk about them all day. Just a couple that came to my mind. One of the things at Grofers was when you guys know Blinkit now, and you know that Blinkit is this hot shit startup. It's the best whatever brand now in India for startups probably, or close to it. But back at the time, Grofers had raised a lot of money, and then it had failed badly. And we made a bunch of offers to the IITs, and we rescinded those offers. And we were banned from all IITs for 3 years. We were in all the bad press. We were like the Byju's of India at the time. When I joined, we were like Byju's Kiniche. We were really bad. And the tech team was just like 30, 40 people. Everyone thought we were done for. And then we made a couple pivots that worked really well, and we started growing again big time. And along the way, we had to hire, and we hired from 30 people to 250 people in the tech org in 2 years. And so I'd spent a lot of time on our branding, our employer branding, and how we're getting out there. And one of the things we started doing is we started hosting open source meetups at the campus. And we weren't picking from the best schools. We didn't have that kind of privilege. We had to get the hackers to come to us. And so we started doing a lot of focus on blogging and around conference presentations. And I made it like a priority for the organization to make our people famous. So this is Apurva Agarwal. And she was a data engineer at Grofers at the time. And she wrote an article. We had like a goal. Everyone had to write a blog post every quarter. And she wrote one on why physical storage of your database tables might matter. It went viral on Hacker News. She spoke at PGCon, the PostgresCon, and it brought in a ton of press for us, et cetera. It launched her, sort of thing. And we supported it, and we sponsored her and got her out there. This brought us so many good engineers, and sort of we became known as a place which had good craft, like good craft for engineering. And I think that really drove a lot of the culture, both in terms of how people who joined us, but also internally people saw themselves as craftspeople who were good at their jobs. There's another guy. This is Tanay Sai. So Tanay was my first hire at Acquia. He's an incredible guy. So he didn't speak English until he was 18, 19 years old. He went to VIT in Vellore. And when I hired him, he's bumbly. Like even now, when you hear him speak, you wouldn't think that his English is totally fluent. It's pretty good now. I used to send him into like Accenture, Capgemini, big companies, and he would go in and do a week-long consulting workshop and come out with a 30-page report with 0 grammatical errors in it. That was like really well written. And I was like, how the hell does he do this? The way this guy does this is he had tricks. So one thing he would do is when he was writing something, he would highlight the text, he'd wear his earphones, and he'd press a keyboard combination and repeat the text back to him at 4x speed. So he would hear his grammatical errors. Anything he was unsure about, he had like a pool of 3 mentors that he would email with the thing, and they would get back to him with the changes. This is pre-ChatGPT or whatever. The point I'm making is this guy, like anytime he heard something he didn't know, a word he didn't know, or a technical term he didn't know, he would write it down, and he would come back and he would like do a report on it the same day or within the week and get back to you. And it's these little compounding things. People who don't come from privilege, who don't come from the most amazing backgrounds, it's these little compounding things that show consistent effort, which eventually kind of grow and pay off. This guy is also, I don't know if you guys heard about this. There was a bug in Slack some years ago. It was a big deal. You could go to Slack and you could say, my email is satya@microsoft.com. And you would see, you couldn't log in as Satya, but you could see all of the groups that existed in the Microsoft namespace. So secret projects got released because people saw group names, basically. They did this. This is Business Insider. Tanay was the one who leaked that. He found that bug. Tanay started something called articlespinner.net or .in. This is the greatest thing. You know what article spinning is? It's when for search engine optimization, if you want to take an existing article and repurpose the content without getting penalized by Google, you change it slightly. That's called article spinning. So he launched this service. He made $12,000, I think, in a weekend with this, with lifetime subscriptions. Can I tell you how the code worked? It's very sophisticated. You upload the content. He would use the Google Translate API, English to French, French to Japanese, Japanese to Spanish, back to English, and then punch it out. Sold lifetime subscriptions for $600 each, whatever. Made a bunch of money. Always be looking for some way to, when you're surrounded by people like that, it's just like good things happen all the time. I would hire him for anything. And he's not the most polished. He doesn't necessarily have great credentials in terms of where he's from. I wouldn't say his like algorithmic skill is top notch. He's not going to compete in elite code competitions for sure, but he'll always find solutions to problems. And I know if I give him a problem, I know that he will work on it until it's solved every time. And when you look at someone that I want to hire, I'm always looking for that. I'm always looking for someone who's creative, ambitious, like hardworking, will like keep compounding something, won't complain, will look for some kind of solution. And so for me, one of the questions I got asked, I think, is like, do you look for credentials? Do you look for a big college? Not really. I look more for people who have continually shown that they're going to work from where they are to somewhere else. I look more for the slope than I do for the intercept. And that's it. That's my story. There's a little bit of people I've worked with, things I've done. Post-Grofers, obviously, Grofers exited to Zomato, became Blinkit. I joined Sequoia. I've been a VC for 4 or 5 years. I'm not talking about that. It's very boring. But I'll go to the Q&A now and won't bore you anymore with this. But thank you for humbling me.
Now, those were some really great insights, Jacob. From your life in USA to moving to India and all your experiences in all the companies and all that. It was really interesting. You might feel it's boring because it's your life, but we all really enjoyed in the way you presented it, all of that. So now
Thanks.
let's move to some questions we have. So I've looked at your portfolio at Sequoia and AlphaWave. You've invested in a number of companies.
Yeah.
Could you like to talk about some of them? What made you say, yeah, this is it?
VC is a funny business. It's once you're inside of it, you realize how 90% of people have misconceptions about how it works. How many of you want to start your own company? How many of you want to start your own company now? A lot of people. All right, that's cool. I would say don't. Or do, whatever you want. But I think we have to understand about VC is that when a VC looks at your business, they don't look at your product, actually. I'm going to say that again. They don't care about your product at all. Unless you have created something that already has a lot of traction, that's very differentiated, that's very exciting, that's created organic traction without any money or anything. They don't care about your product. In the early phases, what they're looking at is this company going to be able to raise money in the future? That's the number one thing a VC cares about at the seed stage. The number one thing at the seed stage is, do I think this company will be able to continue to exist and raise more money? The reason that is that VCs they make an investment, and they know that investment will probably take 10 years to pay off. Along the way, they know that most companies die because they're unable to raise more money and keep growing. And so they're looking for a founder who is well-connected enough and is experienced enough to be able to keep selling their product, to keep finding new investors, to keep growing the thing. And so at the early stage, that's mostly what they're looking for is the founder good and is the market big enough? And if so, I'm willing to put a small bet on that one. As you move up to later stage companies, it becomes much more about the product, much more about the moats, the defensibility of that product from other products that might do it better, et cetera. But at the early stage, I think a lot of early young founders get frustrated because they're like, I've built this thing, it's almost as good as the other product that's out there, but VCs typically don't care very much. They're mostly looking at you.
Yeah.
Also, my advice would be if you want to start a company is if you don't have experience, the chance that you're going to land on something unique and excellent is very, very low. It just is. It's very, very low. Like, when I started the search thing, I had some insight. I had seen something in the field, and that's what had driven me to build that thing. I think you probably would do better to find some experience in the field and don't just think, I want to start a company, let me find an idea. Very few companies are successful that way. You usually have to identify a problem, feel confident about it, have connections in the space, and the nuance and the understanding to build there, and then attack it. So for what it's worth, that's my advice on that. But a lot of people prove me wrong on that. There are exceptions to that rule, a lot of them, and you may be one of them, but yeah.
So you're saying in early stages, it matters more on the founders and if they can grow the company. And later on, it's more about the product.
Yeah.
Right? So now that you told what VCs look for, how do startups actually do this? What advice would you give to folks who are building their startup? What would they need to ignore and what do they need to concentrate on?
If you're going to do a startup, I think the primary thing you have to focus on is distribution and users. Your tech is irrelevant in the early stages for most startups. There's some exceptions to that rule, but by and large, it's just like release something you're embarrassed about, get feedback, talk to users, iterate on it. Your speed of iteration is actually the most important thing. How can the biggest risk in the early stage of a startup is just falling in love with your idea and falling in love with the engineering behind it, and not really understanding what people will pay for, what problem users are desperate to solve. There's a lot of startups which have very, very basic technology to make a lot of money, very, very bad products to make a lot of money. If you're in the right place at the right time, it's much more important. Yeah.
That's really some great advice. How do you avoid chaos in a startup? There's
Chaos?
always inherent chaos. What am I supposed to build? What am I supposed to ignore?
Chaos is normal. It's good. Why would you want to avoid it?
That makes sense.
I mean, I don't know if that's really your thing. I guess prioritization, it depends on your type of startup, but if you're doing a B2B startup, it's really like just go sell the thing before it's ready and then go deliver what you sold. I mean, honestly, it's that simple. Go out there, talk to as many people as you can, close deals, and then work your ass off to deliver it. Get another reference, go to the next place. Get another reference, go to the next place. It's really about your customers. It's just like get in front of your customers and solve their problems. Don't think about, is it a product, is it a service, am I doing this right, am I doing that right, what's my mode, etc. Just solve someone's problem. Solve it again and again, and eventually you'll create something which is sustainable. I'm sorry, it's a very basic answer, but I think a lot of startup people miss it by overcomplicating the process and trying to think like there's some big company which needs a roadmap and all this shit. You don't. Just go solve someone's problem and get them to pay you. Yeah.
Yeah, so now let's bring it home with Blinkit,
Yeah.
a company that literally changed how India shops. Yeah. You did a presentation. We got that clicker from Blinkit a while ago, actually. So yeah, that's how much it's changing the ecosystem in India. During your time as CTO at Blinkit, what were some of the organizational challenges or any other challenges you faced at Blinkit in its early stages?
I think the biggest thing, it depends on your stage of growth. Right now, Blinkit has PMF. COVID gave Blinkit PMF, essentially. When COVID happened, we were struggling, right? When COVID happened, all of a sudden we turn on the site and 30,000 people would concurrently try to order, and they would crash within like a minute. It would crash every time. It was so hard to keep it online, even with a very good team and very good infrastructure. And when you have that kind of organic demand, the business kind of works itself out. Before then, we were burning a lot of money to acquire customers, and the retention was not good enough to support that. And so we tried every different thing you could imagine. We tried all this social commerce thing. You refer your friends, you get a discount. We had membership things. We had coins and points and various stuff like that. We tried some B2B stuff. We tried selling to societies. We tried, next day delivery, like milk basket kind of stuff in societies. We did all kinds of stuff. And because of that, a lot of startups go through this phase of trying to find PMF where they have to experiment really rapidly. And when you're experimenting really rapidly, actually the hardest thing to solve for is it's the robustness of your systems. So automated testing is extremely important, putting that in place so that when you make a change, it doesn't break everything. Clean analytics is very important. So making sure your data easily flows from what you change to the insight you get out of that data. And being able, CI/CD, so being able to deploy things seamlessly across multiple teams and have it not break, or have you know when it breaks before everyone, the customer knows. Triaging your support requests. It's really about there's a lot of stuff around, can you build a culture of innovation where independent teams can go from idea to execution to release and get their feedback and come up with a new idea at a really, really rapid pace. That sounds very basic, but if you think about it, when you're working as an individual with your friend in a lab, and you're doing that all day, you're just releasing every hour, you're putting something new out there. But then you look at someone like Google, and you see this company with thousands and thousands of the best engineers in the world putting out shitty products and not innovating on them. Have you guys used the WhatsApp client on Mac or Windows? Yeah? From Meta, right? What do you think of it? It's garbage, right? Yeah, it's really, really bad. There's stupid bugs in it. Cut and paste doesn't work in some places. It just crashes. It spins for no reason, right? It won't use the right mic. It echoes. There's so many basic problems with it. That's such a widely used piece of software. Meta has thousands and thousands of engineers. Why don't they fix it? Are they not even aware of it? Are they not prioritizing it on purpose? Does Mark Zuckerberg have some great? No, he doesn't have any great strategy. It's just, it's just slow to move things in big companies. It becomes very slow unless you focus on creating robust tech systems that allow teams to operate like startups. So a lot of a phase when startups growing as a CTO is how do I create 20 mini startups inside this organization and make sure they don't break each other, right? How do I isolate code? How do I create infrastructure which is robust? How do I ensure there's testing which is robust, analytics which is robust, so that they can continue operating at pace, innovating at pace. I think that for me was the biggest challenge when we were there.
Right, those were some really great insights and good advice. So, Blinkit famously moved to a microservice architecture.
Yeah.
Would you recommend?
No.
I wasn't even finished my question. Why would you say no?
No, it's not necessarily bad. I don't think you should adopt anything because it's cool. And I think this generation was plagued with a lot of that, or maybe the previous one, where when I started out, we just had PHP and MySQL, or maybe Python, maybe some JSB, whatever. And we scaled some really big websites, really, really big, bigger than Grofers on PHP, and just monolith architecture, and it was fine. We hosted the State of the Union for the President, the Grammy Awards, right? The Weather Channel. Those are just PHP apps with a bunch of caching in front of them and various tricks to make it perform. But we got it done, and it was fine. And so I think there's a place for service-oriented architecture. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But I'll tell you some of the caveats. I work with, I can name them. They probably don't mind. There's, QMath. You guys heard of QMath?
Yeah.
A portfolio company, awesome founder. They had a really great CTO. And he'll be the first to admit it, Maruti, he's a great guy. He's they adopted microservices really early, and they did it absolutely correctly. They were all isolated. They were all versioned on their own. It was all very clean. What they ended up with was, and each microservice has its own database, right? That's how you're supposed to have data independence, right? Complete independence. Well, what that meant was when they try to get their analytics out, they have 600 tables now, because there's a lot of redundancy in terms of how the data is being stored. Now you have to do all the pipeline work to put that back together in a place where you can analyze the data. It becomes a mess. When someone new joins, they don't know where to put the code, right? It's just, there's a lot of side effects that happen with microservices and any kind of abstraction or complication, which are second order effects you don't realize are going to happen. I would say it's really important that you're open to using any tool, new or old, but that you really resist using any tool. You kind of wait until the very last minute when you're okay, this is very bad now, and I'm gonna do the smallest possible change to make it good again. Don't ever fall in love with your architecture and purity and say we're gonna do everything this way. That's typically how bad engineering happens. Good engineering is the very concrete, very specific, simple implementation. Wait until it's unsustainable, and then make one small change, one small abstraction wait until that's unsustainable and keep that process going. So I think a lot of companies went to Kubernetes, went to microservices early before they really needed to. They did it for the sake of some purity or some future need. It wasn't required in most cases. I can talk specifically with architecture if you want, but that's generally what I would say.
So the takeaway is to wait till it's needed. Right.
Wait till it's needed, and then also don't do anything just because it's the right thing to do. Like if you, for instance, you start with a monolith, you have a shopping cart, you have users, you have, whatever, products, et cetera, all that stuff, fine. At some point, scaling that is going to be difficult. And so you may separate out your supply chain side, and you might put like a Kafka queue in between, some kind of layer where you have an order management system which processes the orders, and the supply chain happens separately, so they can scale independently because consumer traffic is different from supply chain traffic, different profiling, so you might do that, fine. Separate out those two. And at some point, you may want to create a centralized login service because you have internal, external apps, you have B2B, different stuff. You might separate that out. But what you shouldn't do is say, oh, we should move everything to microservices. Right? That's where you get into the problem. Just do it when you have the problem.
Right. Now, speaking about your journey, you said you scaled Blinkit from some 30 people to 200, 250.
Yeah.
So you were doing a lot of hiring.
Yeah.
You're building teams that needed to work for further years, build a huge app that needs to work. So what were you looking for in a candidate? Were you looking at their degree or what they've done in their skills? Were you looking at proof of work or years of experience?
I think the main thing that we were always looking for, like I said, we didn't have the best brand name. And at some point, Gojek bought the advertising on the entire metro system in Gurgaon, where our headquarters were. They everything was Gojek, we're hiring, just for employer branding. That's how much competition there was for talent at that point. And we took a slightly different approach. So like I said, we hosted open source meetups. Every week we did Women in Machine Learning Data Science, the Go meetup, the Kubernetes meetup, the Android meetups, like all the different stuff. I got budget for that. And so we had people come, we hired a lot of people through there. We would typically look for folks who are part of open source communities in their colleges who had built stuff. We'd look for proof of work. But I think for proof of work, what I'm seeing now is a lot of people in India, a lot of young people, know that they should have proof of work, so they just come up with just vanity projects. They're like, look, I built this thing and this thing just to show that I could do it, right? And nobody uses that project. They just implemented some algorithm, and especially in the age of AI and LLMs writing code, that's completely pointless. Anyone can vibe code anything these days. Anyone can vibe code anything these days. Does that mean that everyone has vibe coded everything? No. For instance, last week, I was getting frustrated with, do you ever use an LLM to ask you questions, give you, challenge you? Yeah, I wrote this. So tell me 10 things, ask me 10 questions to make this better or something, right? Or ask me questions. Just say, what are some reasons that this might not work? And it'll ask you a bunch of questions, 7 or 8 of them in a row. And it's annoying. It gives you number 1, this, number 2, that, to respond to it. I just wrote a little Chrome extension that put text boxes underneath the questions, so I could just write my answer, tab, write my answer, and then hit a button, and it would compile them all, in XML. So it'd be question 1, this, question 2, that, in my text box. So, and the LLMs give better responses because it knows what question, what answer, and it's better user interface for me. Now, that's a stupid little thing, but actually no one's built it. In fact, OpenAI and Anthropic should have built that a long time ago. It's a very obvious user interface improvement, right? What I mean is I'd much rather see that than I would see that you did some leak code thing or you kind of ported some project to some other language just for the hell of it, all that shows me is that you are able to do a bunch of numbers in your head, whatever, or keep a bunch of logic in your head, or you spend a lot of time in this language. I don't really care. 99% of programming jobs are not that. 99% of them are just solving problems for people using this tool. And unless you are looking to specifically become a PhD in computer science, that's not going to be impressive. What I want to see is that you notice something needed to be built, be it user-focused or a framework or module for some framework. That's fine. It doesn't have to be user-focused. But that there's users of it, that people actually use the thing you built. That's much more interesting to me in the fact that you just built something. So are you able to promote it? Are you able to get people to adopt it? Are you able to handle their objections? Did you build something valuable? That's what I've been most interested in.
So you're saying that solving a real world problem is more important than having a degree.
But having technical quality in your code, I mean, that's important, but like, cleanliness is important. Sophistication is not that important. Are you able to simply solve a real world problem, identify it, execute on it, complete the project, show that? That would be the proof of work I'd be interested in, not like vanity stuff. Or collaborate with others on a larger open source project, handle bugs, issues there, work on an issue queue, stuff like that. Degree is fine. Like, I know this is just me. A lot of people in India really like degrees a lot. It's very important to people. You see people my age, they start off and they're like, the first thing in their bio is like IIT Delhi. I'm like, you did that 25 years ago. Who cares? Like, it's okay. Move on. Like, but you know, for some people it is important. But just for me, not really. I mostly look for the other stuff.
So you've mentioned the idea of AI and vibe coding
Yeah.
and all of that. So how do you think this is gonna affect tech folks who are learning now? What should they focus on? How should they include AI in their work? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lie or sugarcoat it. It's a scary time to be a newbie. It's hard. I can imagine for you guys, it's very terrifying. I mean, I use this stuff and I'm like, wow, I've been doing this for 25 years and I have no skills that are valuable. This thing can do everything I can do. Shit, all right, screw it. Like, what do I do? That being said, you know, I was working on something just last week, and every time you try to work on a serious project, solve a serious problem, particularly if you're using newer technologies, it screws up. And you know, a non-engineer couldn't find those bugs or fix it, couldn't correct it yet. Will that change? Yeah, it'll probably get better. But also, like with any technology, the bar just raises and there's new things. So like, yes, any CRUD app that used to be able to get a big VC check just to like put out some basic forms and for some vertical SaaS thing, easily vibe coded now. Very little value in that. You won't get investment for that. However, if you want to apply some machine learning techniques or you want to use some Vanguard models on that, or you want to chain together a few models together and build some evals to figure out if they're working or not and all that kind of stuff, that stuff's still not going to be done by an LLM. You still, like, it's just that the delta around where you differentiate from the baseline tooling is different from what it was in my generation, but it's still, there is still a delta. Like, there's some things are still hard, yeah.
So now you've mentioned ki vibe coding, we can just code a lot of things with vibe coding. So what makes an engineer valuable beyond code? Even AI can write code, but what makes me valuable in a team as an engineer?
I think, you know, I was talking to my friend Brajesh yesterday. He used to head product at Dunzo. He has a company called Segwise. And he said something really good. He was like, he said all the best things come out of people. It's like the intersection of three things you're above average at. So if you're above average at a few different things, not amazing at any of them, but above average at a few things, and you put them together, that's something cool gets created. I thought about that, and I was kind of interested why he said that. And if you think about it, most kinds of innovation are essentially that. It's not something brand new. It's just a combination of a couple different ideas. And if you have a particular passion for something, then you can find that combination. And I feel like, and I mean, a lot of people give a bunch of gyan and speculate about this right now. I think the reality is that we're all very uncertain what the future looks like. I'm very uncertain what my future looks like. I'm uncertain for all of you guys. I think everyone's uncertain everywhere in the world. And so I wouldn't really know. But I would say that some of the rules which seem to continue to apply is that being T-shaped or kind of being diverse in your interests is very important. Like, I got a lot of value in my career out of being someone who is able to think laterally and be able to translate technology and communicate about it to non-technical people very well. I could sell projects, I could manage stakeholders and other teams, I could deliver training. So being able to be a communicator around technology for me was very effective. And it played to my strengths. And I guess different people have different ones. So don't just be a coder. you have to be kind of good at something else also, I would say is my answer to that. If you're good at something else also, it's not that the LLMs can't teach also, but the combination of the two would perhaps allow me to, for instance, create an ed tech platform around coding, right? Because I have the passion for both teaching and for coding. I'm not sure if that answers your question. It's not very clear, but I would say develop diverse skills. Don't think that you can just be an engineer. Lean into other passions, lean into other specialities, be it design, be it product, be it particular hobbies you have. Become really good if you're interested in genetics. Become really good at genetics and engineering. Become really good at history and engineering. Like you have to find other ways to differentiate yourself that are more subject matter related.
So it's better to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I think so. Not all.
Not all. Not
Jack
all.
of few trades, I guess.
A
yeah.
few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So now that you've answered these questions, it was really great talking to you. Now let's have the best part of the Supermentor session, which is all these students interacting with you, having their questions in an open Q&A session.
Sure.
Hope you're excited for it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Of course.
So whoever has a question can just raise their hand for Jacob. You can be open. Any questions you may have.
Hello, sir. So I just wanted to know what your take is on AI rappers, because you're a VC and there's a lot of money that's going into these rappers where randomly these big companies, they just notice which rappers perform really good in the market and they just launch an event like how Google launches an event and they kill many startups in this process. So what do you think might be the future? Would it be these monopolies like multiple AI huge giants managing multiple things, or do you think there's scope for smaller startups who utilize their wrappers properly and they can beat these markets in particular niches or segments?
Good question. I think we're not sure what a wrapper means yet. I mean, obviously every new technology you could say is a wrapper on something else. A database is a wrapper on the file system, right? Whatever. Like your CRUD app's a wrapper on the database, et cetera. But I do think with AI it's a bit different because, I would say the core decision-making engine is not yours anymore a lot of times. It becomes the AI, in which case you are just like a user interface, which puts you very susceptible to disruption. There's a lot of companies which have made a lot of money being quote-unquote wrappers, and I think that's great. And I think that companies' lifespans are going to be quite short now. They keep getting, it's like the time you have, the moat you have is very low now. Both because it's so easy to build new technology and because the technology providers themselves keep chewing up use cases. I would say that there's a lot of space still in the market, however you want to play it, whether you want to play it long-term or short-term. A couple of areas that I would say are safer to build in and make more sense to me would be where you need a differentiated user experience that will not be served by a chat interface, a generic chat interface. And the other area, I guess, would be where you have multiple, I'll put it two ways. You have a system of record, which is where you store your actual data for your business or whatever, right? And you have a user interface. Now, if you own the system of record, like your Salesforce or something like that, or Oracle or SAP, you're very safe right now, right? And if you build a system of record for a kind of business, let's say I build a learning management system for Scalar or whatever for schools, that's fairly safe as long as I have multiple integrations. It won't completely get disrupted by an AI. Or if I have a user interface that integrates with multiple systems of record, it's fairly safe. Like I spoke to this company who's doing, they're into booking software for gyms. Now, it's pretty basic stuff. You go in, you book your appointment, you talk to a trainer or whatever. It's a vertical SaaS. Why I think that's kind of interesting and good is, if you think about it, at some point, when you want to change your appointment for your yoga session or whatever, you have to call the gym and talk to a secretary or whatever, receptionist to do that. And that receptionist will get replaced by a bot at some point, right? On text and on voice. Now, 11 Labs produces bots that do that kind of thing. But 11 Labs does not own the system of record. So the system of record is still a calendar owned by that thing. Now, you could say that MCP, et cetera, will open it up, but I don't really buy that because I think it's, systems records are more nuanced and it needs to be accurate. MCP and all that is very fuzzy. So I think in that sense, who is going to sell that bot software? Will it be 11 Labs? Will it be OpenAI? I don't think so. It'll be that gym booking software company who will take OpenAI or 11 Labs, whatever, whoever the leader is, and they will package it up and sell that to their customer as an add-on. Does that make sense? So if you own the system of record or you own the user interface, then you can benefit from the enhancements to AI. But if you don't own the system of record, as if you're just a pass-through app where like we take some input and then it processes the information, we give it back to you, then you're very susceptible to being disrupted. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So a very lazy rapper is more prone to losing their reputation, and maybe having a system of record of their own is going to make it more value.
Right. Yeah. And like also user interface, for instance, like, okay, you can talk to like Duolingo kind of things, right? Learning apps. You can talk to OpenAI in Spanish and learn Spanish if you want. But I think if you really want to progress in learning, you need to have more of an interface which shows your progress, what you did last week, what you do this week. There's like a specialized interface around it. So if you own the user interface there, you're not disrupted by the LLMs, you can use them because they're not going to build that specific interface. That makes sense.
Right, makes sense. Having an add-on is an advantage.
Yeah.
Right. Now, who else has any question?
I think this guy.
Right.
Firstly, good afternoon. The question is, let's say you were to start today, what would you choose? A smaller product that generates revenue for you and creates your first million, or would you go all in big to yours and like some vision that you were thinking from the childhood?
Aren't you ambitious? You think it's so easy to get your first million? I don't even know. I think there's a lot of stuff. I feel bad for your generation because like you see all these cameras and shit. You notice in my presentation, there's no pictures. There's no pictures of me from all this time because I don't have any. Like there was very little documentation happening. I didn't have access to everybody else. I didn't know what was happening out there. Whereas you guys are like constantly bombarded with other people your age making millions of dollars and thinking that that should be me and I'm doing something wrong. The fact is, launching an app making $1 million is a huge outlier. It's very, very hard to do. It's very rarely done, and it's okay if that's not your life. And you shouldn't hold yourself up to that standard or think that it's an easy thing to do, that it'll just happen to you if you just try harder. Like it's a lot of luck, first. Secondly, should you go for, are you asking like, should I release something cheap that might make some money or should I do something I'm passionate about? Do both, sure, why not? Like if you can release something cheap, some people do that. Some guy put out I was at my friend Gordon's house, he's the CTO of 1MG, and his nephew or something has this app. It was like ratemyphysique.com. You take a picture of a selfie at the gym and upload it, he feeds it to an LM, he gives you back some bullshit scores. He made like $50,000. It's like, okay, wow. So if you can do those, sure. But I would say, personally, like as a VC, I don't like Missionary. I don't like mercenaries. I like missionaries. If I talk to somebody and it's obvious they're just looking for a startup, it's like, I'm not gonna bet on you. I'll give you an example. This guy, Surya, I really like him. He has a company called Unorg. What do? They do restaurant supply for the unorganized sector, for dhabas, parante wale, that kind of thing, in Lucknow, UP, et cetera. They've grown, they're doing quite well. And it's interesting, normally you'd say, why would you look at a business like that? Why would that be interesting? It's interesting because this guy's father couldn't get a job, and so he left school, and for 2 years, when he was 16 to 18, he worked as a Paranto Wala on the railroad track. And then his dad got placed, then he went to DU, and his buddy went to IIT, and they both graduated and started this business. Now, that guy is like, I don't care if you give me money. I don't care if you come back tomorrow, don't come back. I'm gonna solve this problem. I will be there solving this problem for the next 10, 15 years, regardless of if you invest or anyone invests or does anything. And it's obvious. He's not proud about it, it's just what he is. That's a guy I want to get behind, right? And so I Personally, I look for people who actually really care about and understand their problem, which is why I said if you're a student, you might just want to like work somewhere first or get some experience that you have a problem worth caring about enough, that you actually have a chance of being successful versus everybody else who's just out there trying to make a buck. That's my feeling. Yeah.
That was a great insight, really. Can we have the next question?
Thanks, sir. I'm Arya. And I believe like you have spent a lot of time in this industry. You have seen hundreds of companies succeeding and failing.
Yeah.
I want to know like some common things for companies who did succeed, and specifically some really bad things for companies like who failed like miserably.
That's a very open, general question. I'm not really sure. I would say common thing, I mean, there's so many ways to succeed, honestly, and I've been wrong so many times in my life, so I'm not sure I can answer that properly, but I would say that a few things which are common, I would say not talking to your customers is one of the most common forms of failure. So people who kind of build and are either scared to talk to their customers or too arrogant to talk to their customers tend to get hurt the most as they're building startups, getting constant insights. Another reason companies fail is often, this is a double-edged sword, the arrogance of the founder. I know it's unpopular because a lot of people now look up to a Steve Jobs type of founder, iron fist kind of thing. And but in my experience, that's more the exception than the rule, actually. I think that founders who have a clear vision is very important. But you know, I've seen a lot of companies fail because the founder has a huge ego and doesn't listen to anybody and acts like a king when they have their money and just doesn't listen to the front lines, stays out of touch, and kind of like they go down a bad path. Most of the blow up, the Byju's kind of stories and stuff are stories sort of like that. Sorry to pick on Byju so much. He's not here though, so it's fine. He's probably not allowed to come back, so I guess it's okay. Anyway.
So yeah, it's better to not get it in your head that you're running a company.
Yeah,
Not
like staying humble, talking to your customers, talking to your employees, being on the ground, you know, like I think that's for me very important in leaders.
Great feedback means great growth for a company.
Yeah.
Right. So can we have the next question?
Good afternoon, sir.
Hey.
So nowadays everybody is into AI, like
Yeah.
AI agents and stuff.
Yeah.
So what are some other technologies apart from AI that you think founders or tech people should focus on?
Okay, good question. Yeah, there's so many actually. I'm trying to think what trends are going to lead us towards new things which are sort of differentiated. I think AI is going to impact and heavily impact every industry. So AI will be is a part kind of now of every industry and is sort of changing how it works. That being said, I think just integrating the API of an LLM is not doing AI. That's just using an API, right? Anyone can do that. And working on core AI problems is actually fairly hard and specialized and whatever. I think like hardware, robotics, telematics, I think is increasingly interesting as a field. I think there's a lot of space, a lot of research being done there. I believe like health data, genetic data, you know, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of applications with AI in biotechnology and sciences, I think is also an area which is going to receive a lot of focus. You know, those are things which are crucial for human life, and we're going to see a lot of advancement there, I believe, in the next few years. You know, and if you're talking specifically about just software, I think that there's still a lot of work to be done around data. So one of the challenges I see with AI adoption in like real companies is that data is a mess. It's an absolute mess in most big companies. Even at Growfirst, it was a huge mess. I spent most of my time just cleaning up data, getting data clean so we can get insights out of it. And AI can't really fix that problem. So, and for AI to be effective at organizations, the data that comes into it has to be clean. It has to be a good semantic layer of data. So I think like data engineering and domain mapping and kind of translation of data, governance of data, all those things become a really hot area. I know there's a lot of companies already doing that. You already have Snowflake and Databricks and Atlan from India, right? These guys, there's a bunch, but I think that's an area which is going to have a lot of play going forward.
Right, thanks for that.
Of course.
Right, thanks for the answer. Now, can you move to the next question?
So hi, Shekhar.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just giving you a situation, and I just wanted how would you react to it?
Yeah.
Let's say you are again 2022 in this present time. You have an idea, but you don't have the technical competence to build that. You are not much familiar with all the tech stacks available at this moment. So what would be the first step towards that you would take towards your idea and then implement it?
Huh. Interesting
In both
question.
segment, technical as well as the business side.
Interesting. I've never really, I mean, that's not been my experience. Like I told you my story, so I didn't know and I just learned. Like I just banged my head against the desk until I learned. And so I've always been a builder. Never really been on the other side of the table where I can build. But I would say if you're in that situation, I've known some good founders like that. I think one is you should learn to build some. You don't necessarily be a great engineer, but you should be good enough that you can bust out a prototype. I think that's crucial right now. I think business users who can't even prototype, who can't use like Bolt or don't understand, like learn Firebase, Supabase, something like that. Be able to connect up a database to your vibe-coded Bolt app. Be able to connect up to a Zapier or IFT or whatever, some kind of automation thing, send out some emails, like just using existing tools on the internet, you should be able to put together a business on your own without an engineer. Unless you can do that, I think your days are numbered as a startup founder. I think even business users should be able to do all of that stuff now. I think, I think that's going to be, we're seeing a lot of indie hacking kind of small businesses who are going that route. And then just doing that much I just said, it still requires some work. It requires some learning. So I would actually get technical. It'll also help you attract a technical co-founder because I think technical co-founders don't want to work with business users. They're going to outsource all of the work to them. They're like, if your business user comes to you and you're an engineer and they're like, all right, I've done all this already, I will continue to do all this donkey work of getting all this stuff working. We just need to solve this more difficult tech problem. They're more likely to kind of want to join you. That helps you.
So
There's
it's
someone in the back there.
So you would say it's better to get technical and have a co-founder and more on the technical side rather than just business, right?
Well, if you're saying you're a non-technical founder, how do you get started?
Yeah.
So I'm saying I would get a bit technical these days.
Bit technical and then max out.
Yeah, because I think that it's very annoying, those people who are like, I'm looking for a technical, it doesn't really work. Like you should be able to build now. I think it's important at some level. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, sir. So, my question was, what's the kind of ratio we should spend? Like, let's take the example of Scale. Like, Scale is dedicating us to learn skills and etc. So, what I wanted to know is, in a lifetime, what's the ratio of time we should spend comparing our skills, building our skills, and then also implementing them into an industry? And like an overall timetable of how we should progress to create a particular startup. Like, as you said, just heads first going inside and startup is not going to work out. It's a very rare thing to do. So what's the perfect timetable or the ratio of time we should spend inside a company and then think about building a startup?
Okay, like at what point in time do you know that you're ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know the answer. I think that answer varies for everybody, right? Like, I mean, it's funny. I'm telling you guys not to do a startup, but my first job was my own company. Like I started up by telling this guy that I could build websites, and I started a company right when I was young. There's a lot of different ways to start companies. Like I started a services company. That's also really not a bad thing to do. That's a great way to learn. When you should start, I have no idea. It's interesting that everyone here wants to do a startup. Does everyone here want to do a startup? Does anyone want to just get a job? No? You want to get a job? Yeah. All right. Well, you're the only one who wants one, so you're definitely going to get one because no one else here seems to want a job. So, yeah, I would say that what I found really important in my career is it's like I said, it's much, much more important the organization you join than the level you join at or the role you join in. If you join an organization which is growing and which is full of people who are kind, who care about their work, like craftspeople, you will learn a lot from them and it'll be worth your time. If you join a place like, I would say don't go join, like, even if you get a great offer, probably not a good idea to join like a finance company. Like, don't go join Goldman Sachs, don't go join like TCS or Infosys or something and just like slave away on some menial problems. Like, that's not worth your time. You might as well do your own services company, your own startup, your own freelancing. If you're serious about getting good, you're not gonna get good there. You'll just get a stable job and a good salary, but it probably won't take you anywhere. If you're serious about starting your own company one day, you should work around people who have started companies. You should work with people who are entrepreneurial. You should kind of like be in a high growth environment where even though you're not owning the company, you can act like an entrepreneur inside the company. Like, you can act like an entrepreneur in Goldman Sachs, it'll probably get you fired. Right? Because you'll like be challenging your boss. You'll be telling someone, saying something in a meeting you're not supposed to say. You'll be, hacking on something and whatever. So I would say, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur one day, find organizations which allow you to do that inside the organization. Yeah.
You are the average of the 5 people around you. So surround yourself with good company so that you can build a company one day.
Yeah, that's scary to me. Mine's like my daughter, Claude, Gemini.
No, that's scary,
Right.
actually. So, any questions?
Yeah. And like Claude and OpenAI are the average of the 5 billion people around them, or whatever. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to learn something new. So what framework you would follow? Like, how to be a better learner?
How to learn something new? Oh, that's a very open question. I don't know. I believe everybody kind of learns differently. I know I've seen different people learn very differently. There's a book called The Mind for Numbers. Have you read this? Have anyone heard of that book? No? A Mind for Numbers. No? I'd recommend you check it out. It's sort of about how people learn. It's quite interesting. Me personally, I'm a project-based kind of learning person. Like, I like to take on, like, okay, I play guitar. I've played guitar forever. I'm not very good. I'm somewhat good. To get most of the good musicians I know, they sit down and they practice their scales for an hour a day, and they kind of have a regimented way of learning. I think that's a more effective way to become a really good guitarist. But it doesn't work for me because I get bored. So the way I learn is I pick a really hard piece. There's no way I should be able to play. And I sit down and I put a metronome on and I play it at like 40 beats per minute. Really slow, measure by measure, and I kind of get down and I work at it, and then I speed it up. And I kind of have that project, just sort of get at it. And in the process, my skills develop, right? So when it comes to like, if I want to learn a new framework or I want to learn a new language, I just pick a project. Like, I'm just going to build this thing, whatever it is, some little hobby project, a little recipe builder site, or a little game or something like that. And then I apply myself at it. So for me, that's how I like to learn. Different people are different, though. Some people like to go methodically, work through curriculum, kind of stuff. But for me, I like to do projects. Hope that helps.
So you're a person who implements while learning, and that makes you better at learning fast.
Yeah, like, I find it boring to just learn things. So I like to. This is why I think I was good at software, and I like to do it. Coding is addictive because it's really one of the only things you can do where you work at it and then you see the result immediately. Like, you get to find out if you were right immediately. Let's say you're an author, you write a book. Like, you have to write the book for 2 years, work with the publisher for a year, and then he goes to market and nobody buys it. You're like, shit, that wasn't very good, right? Software, we get instant sort of feedback. Does it compile? Does it run? Does it do the thing we wanted to do? And so for me, I really like that dopamine loop or whatever. So
the instant dopamine of a feedback.
So it motivates me to stay awake till 2 or 3 in the morning. Whereas if I'm just like reading a textbook, trying to memorize stuff, it'll never motivate me to stay awake till 2 in the morning.
It's better to be practical than all theory.
I don't know if it's better. It works for me.
It works. Yeah. It's always better. Yeah. So can we move to the next question?
So, how exactly should startups manage flexible authentication and authorization at scale. So just for example, like if you do scenarios, should we better use an open source authorization service like eCloak, or should we go for something paid that is Auth0?
Oh, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I would say like your business is not about how you authenticate users. It's kind of irrelevant. So I would say if you're serious about a business, you shouldn't really be focusing too much on anything that's non-differentiated for the business. You might not remember this, but I'll mention it. There's a thing called Wardley mapping. Wardley. So Wardley maps are a way to look at a business process or an idea and find the crucial and the non-crucial aspects of it. And so whenever you're doing a business, you should kind of be aware of like, is that decision going to make or break my business? Now, I don't know what your business is, but my guess is no, it's probably not. So it doesn't really matter. Use whatever. Like it's going to be fine until it's not. It doesn't really, like, make irrelevant decisions very quickly. You guys know about bike shedding? Yeah? No? The term bike shedding refers to, there's a bunch of great scientists and they're building a nuclear power plant. They've been brought together to build the world's greatest nuclear power plant. And an engineer, a civil engineer, and a nuclear scientist, and whatever, everyone. And they all get together and they're like their first meeting and they're like, this is awesome. We're gonna build this amazing nuclear power plant. We're the best experts in the world. What should we do first? And someone's like, man, I'm really excited. We should, let's all ride our bikes to work because we can ride our bikes. That's a great idea. And they said, cool, let's build a shed to keep our bikes in because it rains. And they're like, that's a great idea. Let's build a bike shed. And then they said, okay, but what color should we make the bike shed? And they spend the entire budget arguing about the color of the bike shed. Right? So this is what the bike shedding thing is about. So don't, that probably doesn't matter. Yeah. Sorry not to answer your question directly, but I would say it probably doesn't matter. Yeah. Do the fastest, easiest, cheapest thing. One-way doors, two-way doors, that kind of thing. That's a two-way door. You can always change it later.
So it's better to spend more time on relevant stuff and get irrelevant stuff done fast.
Yeah. Throw money at it, do whatever you need to do, just gonna get it out the door.
So can we have another question?
I think everyone's done.
Yeah. So yeah, that brings us close to the open Q&A session. So it was really great having you here for this session. And let's say somebody forgot everything about the session. What's one takeaway you want them to remember for a lifetime?
Okay. I would say the main takeaway I have, because I think probably my background, even though I'm American and I have a different accent, and my skin's a different color, etc., and I'm older than you, I'm probably similar to a lot of you guys in terms of where I was in my career, where you are now. And I feel a lot of empathy for that uncertainty around the future and what's going to happen and how to make it happen. And from the other side of that, if I could reach back across and tell my younger self a couple things. Interestingly, they kind of contradict, but I would say that whatever you pick, it's better that you don't hedge so much. It's better that you kind of just start working. Just find things and continually work, continually build. Just continually get into things. Be curious, be really curious, and let your curiosity take you into impractical areas. Just follow your curiosity. Don't follow a script. Don't follow a strategy. Follow your curiosity. Build stuff that you want. Notice things that suck and rebuild them. Build a new WhatsApp client for Mac and release it. Get sued by Facebook. Do it. Whatever. Find whatever little things that bug you, little itches that bother you in terms of how the world works. With software, you have this incredibly malleable tool which can do so many things, and you are actually in a very small percentage of people who know how to use this thing. It doesn't feel like it, but you actually are. Very small percentage. And there's so many things out there that could be improved or changed in minor ways. Go do them. Just keep keep staying curious and keep following your curiosity. Because I find that in my career, that's what I've done. I've not had a plan. I've never jumped from one job to the other. I've always just quit things when I didn't like it anymore. And then I would sit around and be curious. In between all this, I have one story I didn't tell you. I failed. I tried to build a magic magnifying glass that helped kids learn to read, which they hold over any book and it would sound out the words and it would like highlight the syllables and sound out the words to them so they could, if they didn't have an adult to help them, they could do that. I got an intern, I built a Raspberry Pi prototype and stuff. We couldn't get it off the ground. Now, why did I build that? Because I had a 6-year-old daughter who was learning to read, and I thought this would be cool if she didn't, if someone like her didn't have a parent around like me to build this thing. So I was into it. I was curious. I didn't succeed, but in the process, I still learned things. I still met people. I still grew, and I would say like lean into that is one thing. Lean into your curiosity, and be open to change and be open to when you find something new, go chase that, and you'll find opportunities through that, much more than being conventional or trying to follow a strategy, follow your curiosity. The second thing I will say is I took some conservative decisions with my career because I wasn't financially sound. My family didn't have money. And I don't regret that, but it's okay. I would say that, but if I look back in time and I give my younger self permission, I would say I would give my younger self permission to do things that are really ambitious and personally exciting rather than just commercially successful. All of you, start planting a seed inside yourself about something that you're really into personally, some kind of hobby, some kind of interest, something that you find really cool. Just plant the seed that one day you might build something in that space. You might get to do something like my friend who made parantas on the railway track, right? And had this thing, like, if there's something like that for you, and give yourself permission that even if you can't afford to take that leap right now, just keep that little garden in your mind and keep watering it. Just keep watering it, keep engaged with it, keep it in the back of your mind, keep looking into ideas, just keep fermenting it so that at the right time, when you have the resources, when you have the experience, you have the networks, you can really do something that you get up every morning excited to do. Because I think there's nothing, when I give my daughter's 15, I give her advice about what I would like her to do. Thankfully, she has more privilege than I did. I would say to her, even if it's something a little financially irresponsible, like being an academic, for instance, you're not gonna make as much money, but do something where every Monday you get up and you're just like pumped. You're just like, I'm obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with this problem. If you can find a life where you're obsessed with your problem every day, you've made it. Much more than making your first million or launching the next AI wrapper that gets funded by Excel or whatever. I think you've made it if you got there. So those are the two things I'll leave you with. And good luck.
We actually have one last question from the dashboard from people who are watching it live. So somehow there will always be trends that keep popping, and for us to do something really meaningful and survive, we always have to keep training that learning muscle. So being a fresher in tech, what could be training and be a very quick learner no matter what trend pops up?
How do you learn quickly? No matter
How do you
what pops
learn
up?
quickly and adapt? I think that summarizes the question.
I mean, you don't have to learn every trend also, but I would say different people are motivated in different ways. For me, a couple things were, one was building projects, but the other one is people. Like having a community is highly motivating for me. Like if you have other people that you learn with, you have like buddies who you hack with. Like open source was huge for me, huge. Like I was just a nobody engineer. Like I was building little websites and stuff like that, a little company, et cetera, et cetera. And then I joined up with this company to Drupal websites, and I closed this big deal with Amnesty. And all of a sudden, like I was speaking at conferences in front of 400, 500 people. I was building modules that were used by hundreds of thousands of people out there, right? And it was like, I was contributing on code, and I'd post an issue. I thought I was very clever. I'd work on a patch, and I'd upload it, and like 200 people would just ream me in the message queue, just insult me, tell me all kinds of things, how bad I was, like I screwed this up. It hardened. I was on like I had security holes in my modules. They get exposed by security team, and I'd have to come in and be embarrassed by that, but then learn security. So the whole open source community and the feedback loop that I got out of that was super valuable for me becoming a really good engineer, learning really quickly, learning really thoroughly, and staying motivated because it becomes part of something much bigger than yourself. It's very hard to stay motivated to keep up with stuff if you're like just on your own. So I would say find a community to work with in open source, and you can't keep up with every trend, and you shouldn't. Like you should be good at a few things. You can't be good at everything. So be really good at some stuff.
That was really insightful, and I hope you all get the takeaways from the session. Even if you forget everything down the lane, please remember these things. They're going to help you down the line. So,
Or you can just get in touch with me and ask me again. So you can find me on Twitter, it's Jacob Singh, or you can whatever, get in touch with me however you want, my website, etc.
yeah. So really, thank you for being here. Now we have a kit for you, a special SST kit for you.
All right, cool.
We're going to present it to you now.
This is a PlayStation? I heard this is a PlayStation.
No, sadly, no, it's a SST kit.
That's why I came here. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should I open this? No. Later. Okay, I'll open it later. Cool. Sure, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Should I hold this thing?
I can